Okay, YouTubers, back in front of the camera again here in the woodworking shop. I got a couple of things I want to share with you today. It's not a project, really, not going to be making anything, but what I got is a couple of shop tips. Pitch and gum buildup on your saw blades. I know everybody has that problem, and I don't know if you use some of the less expensive saw blades and you just replace the things when they get dull. It might not ever be a factor for you. What I'm talking about is taking that pitch and gum off your blade. Different species of wood creates different amounts, and if the wood is got internal stressors and it gets rubbing against your blade and that sort of thing, it all changes how much buildup you have. But over time, everybody has some. So if they don't replace the blade, I guess if you send it out to a sharpening service, that they'll clean it up and sharpen it for you. Anyway, I got a blade right here. This is a Fruid glue line rip blade. It's got a little bigger kerf. The blade itself is a whole lot thicker than a normal saw blade, and that's to keep it straight and true when you're ripping wood. It's a super good blade, and I really like it for rip cuts. That's all it's for, is rip cuts. And it's really expensive blade, so I take care of it and try to keep it clean. So what I've done here is clean the pitch and the gum off of it, and I did it before I actually thought about that might interest somebody how I did that personally here. So this one's already clean. Everybody can show up here and show the teeth. Now, I'm not worried about some of this buildup that's on the paint down here next to the gullet. That's not going to affect us anyway. That's just more or less of a stain on there, and I didn't even worry about those. But what we're worried about is on the teeth themselves right here. You see how shiny that tooth is in the light there? That's been cleaned off, and those things, they'll wind up being good and shiny, and all that pitch and gum off of it. How I do that, and there'll be a lot of naysayers, I'm sure, but because it does involve some chemicals, but not chemicals like you might think. I spray a whole lot of lacquer here in the woodworker shop. In fact, that's my finish of choice, unless I got a customer that requests something different when they ask. I advise lacquer, if it's suitable. Now, it's not always suitable for everything, but most things we spray lacquer. So what I do for this saw blades, I use that lacquer thinner, a lacquer reducer, whatever you want to call it, and one of these. This is nothing more than a brass brush. It's just got brass bristles in it. I think I found this one at an auto parts store. So anyway, and I take some of that lacquer thinner, and I'll just dip my brush in the lacquer thinner, and then take and brush that pitch and buildup off the blade just like this. Now, the brass bristles in the brush is nowhere near hard as the carbide on the blade, so it won't affect it. And I always rub it. I don't rub it into the teeth either. You know, you want to come at it like this and brush that stuff out, but it works really well, and that's something that you can do, and you can get immediate results. You don't have to let it soak and various assorted things. And there's tons of other ways to do this, and then I'm not saying those are bad. If lacquer thinner bothers you, if you don't like to get it on your hands and you don't like to mess with that sort of thing, this is probably not the method for you. At any rate, if you're run up in the bind and you need to clean that blade so it quit burning that wood for that project that you're sawing, this is a way to do it. So, and it can do it quick. Just as long as it takes you to sit down there and brush it off, wipe it down with a rag, and you're finished. So just thought I'd throw that tip in there. Another little thing we got going on here today, I am going to make a jig to sharpen my planer blades on my drum sander. And so I get this thing set up, and we'll talk about that some more, and I'll let you see how that's done. Okay, now we're going to talk about this jig to sharpen the planer blades. A couple things we got to do. We got to cut these grooves on the proper angle so the knives will set down in there. And when you set the knives down in it, then you see you've got your bevel on your knife. It's flat. Hits at 90 degrees to here. It's square. If you check across the bottom here and come up, this bevel would be square to it. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. And to determine the bevel on that knife, I've got one of these. And that is a digital angle finding gauge. It's a Wixie. I guess you call it Wixie. But I started out on my table saw and I set that thing and zero it out. Let me show you just exactly what's going on here. So I take the Wixie thing and I start here on the saw and I turn it on and I zero it out. And I take this planer blade and I put it up on the bevel, stand that knife up till it sits flat on the bevel. Then I'll take this Wixie gauge, it is magnetic, and stick on the knife right there. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut these angles right here on the arm saw. And the arm saw, we're going to use the arm saw because two reasons. On the arm saw table, this board will lay flat. We're going to reference off the bottom right here. This is perfectly flat across the joiner. You reference off of this when you cut the grooves, when the knife's set in them, and then when the knife's in there, this is setting on the belt to go through the drum sander. So everything is referenced always off the bottom of the board. Doesn't make any difference what happens up here to the wood. I mean, it could be a hump or whatever. Wouldn't matter. The grooves will be cut the same. The knives will stay at the same height. And they'll stay on the same angle. And it'll all be referenced off the bottom when you run it through the drum sander to sand. Okay. I've got set up here now. What I want to do on this one, I think I'll cut two on one side and two on the other. Because it is, both sides are parallel, won't be a problem. So we have two knives and they'll be turned in like this. So they'll be going this way. That'll accommodate four knives. That makes me only have to move the saw one time. So we'll cut the first groove and see how that turns out. So there is our jig. Each one is set properly. The depth is all the same. The blade fits right down in here. Good and snug. So now there's our jig to hold our planer blade to run them through the drum sander. See, we got the proper bevel right here, got a perfect fit in here. Now lay those four blades in this jig, each and every one of them be exactly the same. And we'll use a real fine sandpaper. I'll show that as it comes out. We're gonna get over here and get it set up. Oh yes, we're going to make just a very little bit at a time. And I don't know if the camera can see it. We're starting to get these cut down. Still some places where the markers are showing, and we get those knives brought down to that level. And it sounds like it's cutting a lot, but it's really not. Very small amount on each pass. Anyway, I got one knife in here, still got a little mark on it right here and a little touch right here. So it was not ground. It was not ground the same as the others, and it wasn't straight. So at any rate, the jig's going to work. It's going to work fine. Like I said, I realize that some of you don't have this kind of equipment, and so it'd be hard to do that. And some of the planers use disposable knives, so it's not even an option. But just thought you might find it interesting, and had to sharpen these knives today. I'm going to have to change them out on the planer. I might even shoot a little video of changing the knives on the planer. All right, we're over here at the planer now. I'm going to take these old knives out. This thing's laying in here. It's got some sawdust and stuff, and I want to clean out the groove in the cutter head where the knives and the gibs and stuff go. So I'll spin around here and let you see me taking one of these gibs loose and how it comes out if you've never seen this before. The way this works, this is the knife, and then this here is the gibs. The gibs are cut on an angle, and the knife sits back in here. And these are actually bolts that screws into the gib. If you can see them, I don't know if I can maybe zoom in here a little bit and see those things down in there. I don't know. But these bolts screw directly into the gib. Well, when you tighten the bolts, like you was going to tighten the bolt into it, it relieves the pressure. It screws into the gib and takes it away from this side of the channel in the cutter head, and it loosens up the gib, and that allows the knife to come out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tighten these bolts, which will loosen up the gibs, and let those come out. Now this particular planer, I know some don't. Some will have adjustment screws to set the height of the knife. This particular planer doesn't use those. It uses springs, and I'll show you where those are located at. Get the zoom back out here maybe where you can see. It's hard to get it where everything is, you can see everything. Okay, now here's the knife. We'll pull it out. And this one here, see if you can see this. You hit a screw. See that place in that knife right there maybe. So run a board through there, it had a screw in it, and it got it there, and I think you can see that in another place. So big old places in the knife. But anyhow, there it's out. So now we'll pull the gib out of it. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of. I just reach in there with the little pliers and get the thing out. And may not have. There we go. See, there's the gib, and it's tapered. It's tapered like the channel in there that it holds the knife up, tied up against the cutter head, and that's what keeps it from coming out. Now, back to here, the way that the knives are set in this machine, it don't have the adjustment screw like some of the others. My joiner has an adjustment screw, and you set the height of the knife. This one has springs in it. They're just small springs. This. And the knife sets on that spring, and then you take a knife setting gauge and you push it down, and it holds that knife down exactly the same amount for each one on the cutter head. You tighten the gibs up, and then it holds it in place. The that's how this particular cutter head on this planer works. Got the cutter head cleaned, and the gibs. Now what I'm going to do is reinstall the setup springs back in their proper place and install a knife. Like I said, when we tore this down, some planers have adjusting screws, and they're used to set the height of the knife blade. But this particular planer uses springs. So now we drop the gib back in there, and the next thing to go in will be the knife. It just sharpened. So now we need to use the setting tool. Now this tool here, and this is one from my 13-inch planer. I bought this planer used when I got it. I got it in the frame here. I bought this planer used when I got it, and he didn't have one with it, and I have never ordered one. Although this one works relatively well. And what this will do is you bring it in here and you set it like that on the cutter head, and it's got a locating device right here. This is set right down on the blade, and it's right on the point, and that locates that blade exactly the proper distance from above the cutter head, and it keeps it straight, true, all the way across. So you hold that down on the cutter head, and we'll come in here and we'll tighten up well, actually we're going to loosen the bolts on the gib, which will tighten it up in there. Now let's see, let me get just a little bit further along here. Works better if you have a thinner wrench to get in there, just to get started. Once you get started and underway, then you get room to work in there. Now we'll come back in here and set our gauge back on here. Hold down on that. Now we've got each end of it locked down so it could move. Now I want to come back in here and double check. And I didn't have it held down good, it doesn't look like. So you want to double check and make sure that you do get it pushed down, because that does set the cutter height for the knife, and they all have got to be the same height. I know that probably sounds complex to anybody that had messed with one of these, but yeah, we're good. All right. See, once again, if that doesn't make any sense, let me try to explain. These 2 feet, this gauge sits on the cutter head. It's round in here. This portion of it sits on the knife. And when you put it on here and you mash that down, it pushes that knife down against those springs, and that sets the height that the knife sticks out of the cutter head. So that gets each one of them exactly the same. And on these big planers like this, you can adjust the roller height and the pressure, unlike some of the bench top planers where there's no adjustment on it. These things is a whole lot more complex and set up. You can adjust the chip breakers and the rollers and all that stuff. And if you change the knife height, which is the height the knife sticks out of the cutter head, then you're going to have to readjust the chip breaker and the rollers and all that stuff. So you want to make sure that you use your gauge and get that knife height set properly each time you change those things. So this one has this. Now that we've got this set here, see, we can the knife is exactly where it should be above the cutter head on both ends. It's great. So now we've got that knife height set correctly. We can go ahead and tighten up the rest of the bolts in this gib and do the other 3 exactly the same way. So we'll get those. I'll go ahead and shut the camera off, and I'll go ahead and set the other ones and get those reinstalled back into it, and then we'll have this planer ready to put back together, ready to put the cover on it, and ready to plane some wood. Okay, we got the thing back together. That them newly sharpened knives, that thing comes out there. I don't know if you can see. I don't know where you can tell. You can just almost see the light reflected on it. I see just a little bit of shine there maybe. But that thing came out slick enough. It's almost finished quality there. This is extremely light sanding with some real fine paper, and that thing would be ready to go. But that's what we after when we do the knife swap. I hope that that light sure is bright on there. I hope that this might help you out some. If you're going to change the knives on your planer or sharpen your knives, depending upon what kind of planer you've got. If it's a planer with sharpenable knives, and you have the tooling and equipment, you might want to undertake that yourself. Anyway, I hope that helps some folks that's going to undertake their knife swap on their planer. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, just post them down there. I'll certainly try to get them answered. Thanks for watching.